Welcome to the intactivist voice, where this is where truth meets compassion, where survivors are heard, where parents heal, and where every child's body is expected. And today we have Jeff Dietrich with us, and he's going to talk to us about why circumcision continues today and and how he feels is the best way to reach those that are unaware of their injury, like I was until I was 55. But let's get into it, and I know everybody is got a busy schedule, so we'll try to get to the meat of it as soon as we can. So welcome, Jeff. Give us a little bit about your background.
Thank you, Dwayne. So, my name's Jeff. I'm from South Carolina, 32 years old, and I've been doing intactivism for about a year now. I actually got into this with foreskin restoration, recovered some coverage and had some benefits, and realized something very important was taken from me. So, I went down the rabbit hole and tried to figure out what circumcision is all about. Growing up, I knew I was circumcised, but I didn't really understand the differences and the harm that circumcision causes until I dove into the research and discovered that foreskin is the primary male sexual erogenous tissue, has many functions related to protection, pleasure, lubrication, and connection, and the alteration causes a lot of downstream sexual problems. And it also has a lot of emotional and psychological problems because it's a violent preverbal trauma that is very painful and is inflicted upon children because no adult would consent to genital cutting. So the bigger exploratory topic lately has been the psychology, the cultural norms, and that's how I got involved with Bloodstained Men. Dwayne invited me to come on out, and I enjoyed my tour for the Super Bowl tour a few weeks ago in San Francisco. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great to have you, and it's so fantastic to have someone so knowledgeable about the issue with us, and and you're and I'm sure you'll be welcome back. Yeah. So
Thank you.
so I do have some questions. We're not going to get to all of them, but I really would like to start with is how do we reach the men that don't yet realize that they've been injured? Like me, I didn't know until I was 55 years old. I never saw another man's penis. How would I know? Um, but so why do you think so many men deny or minimize their loss?
The primary reason is because they hold false beliefs about the intact anatomy, or they're completely unaware of the functions and purpose of the intact genitalia. So it's a lack of education, but also a lack of curiosity because circumcised men are not inclined to believe that they were harmed by the people they trusted. So they're not likely to go research the topic in depth. And they're also not aware of the consequences to changing it, such as the downstream sexual dysfunction and so forth. After talking to a recent or longtime restorer, he advised me that he's tried a lot of different methods on getting through to guys. And he found that perhaps the best way was to talk about the sexual benefits of having foreskin. It seems that American men are extremely defensive about the size of their penis or their sexual prowess. So perhaps by slipping foreskin facts, it could help them realize that they could be even better with a foreskin, and they
Uh,
should have been even better.
I totally agree. And it's like, so I think certainly the way that I've been approaching intactivism is about why it's wrong to cut the genitals of a child. So it's like, this is bad, you're bad, or you did bad by doing what you did. And that does it's not working. It's not we're not reaching the people. So it's like when you say you've done something wrong, so to speak, and it's like they do immediate defense. Oh, yeah, yes, I am. I did the best thing. I did health of my child and all these things. And but so how would we reach a man who says, I'm fine with my circumcision, even though fine isn't excellent, and he doesn't even know what he's missing. So how do we get to them?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think we just educate him that he could be excellent. He could be even better with foreskin for multiple reasons, and that it should have been his choice to undergo surgical alterations of his penis, and also to let him know that no adult wants this. The adult elective rate in the United States is less than 1 in 1,000. And in other countries, such as the Netherlands, that do not have a cutting culture, the elective rate is like 1 in 16,000. So most men value their foreskin. They know its benefit, and they would never want to have it cut off, even for $1 million.
Yeah, right. No one's gonna say, "Hey, cut part of my penis off." No one's gonna say that. And I agree with what you said. And it's like we live in a genital cutting culture, but the reality is we don't really live in a genital cutting culture. We live in a genital harvesting culture because they're selling the foreskin to the biotech and cosmetic industries. So it's
Mm,
not just a cutting culture, it's a harvesting. We do harvest the genitals of infants and sell them over the internet as you speak. So don't believe me. Research, go right now. Go type in infant foreskin fibroblasts and click shopping, and you can get infant foreskins shipped to your front door as we speak. So yeah, don't believe
yeah,
me about it. And I think that you've addressed that how men are they're triggered into defensiveness because they don't want to believe that they were harmed.
right.
They don't want to believe that their parents abandoned them. And they don't want to believe that their parents allowed harm to happen to them. And they don't want to believe that harm did happen to them and that they're not as sexually active as they could be or active or
Or
as much
capable.
as they can. They're less of a man. Let's just say it out loud. They're less of a man. They might be masculine, but they have less of a penis. So
Yeah.
yeah, how do you address that?
Yeah, I mean, their manhood was removed. That's why
Yeah.
I don't understand these African initiation rituals where, the kid is growing up into adulthood and they remove his manhood. It makes no sense.
No, none of it makes any sense. Yeah, and the logic is not reaching the people. I can't
Right.
logically see, it's like logically you should keep this part because it makes you uh so you have a larger, more pleasurable, better functioning penis. Who wouldn't
Yeah.
want that? So that's logic, but we're
Yeah.
still doing it to infant boys. It none of it, yeah, logic isn't working.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how we reach the parents and especially potential parents. So I think it's so important because these are the people that are making the decisions about a child's future and what his sex organ will look like and what will be left of it if he survives the procedure. Because infant boys
Mhm.
die all the time from this. So, when is the most critical moment to reach the parents?
Um, well, I guess better late than never. I know a couple pregnant couples, and I've been talking to them. Some conversations going better than others, but I'm letting them know that this is an important decision not to be just blindly followed. I've heard some parents say they didn't know that it was a choice to decline circumcision because it is solicited pretty heavily in the hospitals. But to let them know that it's 100% unnecessary, and the most important thing that can really wake them up is to let them know that there are no benefits to amputating healthy anatomy. So there's a bunch of medical claims and science that can be argued, but none of it applies because it's a false premise. We do not do surgery on healthy body parts. And a baby's foreskin is healthy. Now, there might be a 1 in 10,000 chance that an adult has a foreskin problem and he might need some kind of surgical alteration, but it's very, very rare and should be a last resort.
Yes. Yeah, because there's alternatives. There's definitely
Yeah.
alternatives to cutting the foreskin off. There's stretching techniques and there's steroidal creams available. Um, but the doctors just want to cut it off. And the foreskin is not even in the medical textbooks. The
Mm,
doctors don't even know what it is. They
good
don't
point.
know its full function. They don't know its anatomy. They know how to cut it off.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, so there is a lack of education problem um, that will be harder to fill in the gaps because oftentimes people only take learning from what they consider credible sources, but it should be pretty common sense to know that our body parts have purposes and functions, especially on the sexual organs. If there's any part of the body that's pristinely designed or perfectly evolved, it's going to be the reproductive organs.
that I totally agree with because what does any life form have to do? Any life form has to eat, it has to survive, and it has to procreate. So it's like, where do I find
Yeah.
food? Where are the lions and tigers and bears, and how do I make more of myself? So it's like anything that's not going to have a problem is the reproductive aspect of that organism.
Yeah,
So,
good point.
what resources, if you could get the resources to the potential parents, what resources should every new parent see before birth?
So I like Your Whole Baby. They have a very good educational program that frames this as a way to lovingly welcome your son and to honor his body and his bodily autonomy and to acknowledge the benefits of having foreskin. And they also get into some of the harms of circumcision. But focusing on the harms can actually drive people away. So that's why I would first recommend Your Whole Baby as opposed to recommending something like Ronald Goldman's circumcision harms studies. Um, so there has to be kind of a gentle parenting in that fashion, I believe. But there are other resources that I would recommend as well, like Doctors Opposing Circumcision. They have a great website, tons of great material. So those are a few to name.
Well, you like dove into my next question was is in which message seemed to backfire, and what were you saying about that?
So what I think is that approaching it first from a message of circumcision is harmful could actually drive people away because a big reason that circumcision is not discussed or considered or thought about is because we know it's harmful. We know it's painful. We know it's sadistic and evil. But if there's a gentler way to bring all this to light, it may be more effective. And I think Your Whole Baby does a really great job of that.
Yes, I totally agree, and and I find that I personally find that softer message, even though I know it's better, and I'm getting working towards that, and I'm getting better at it. But it's like for me, and it's like 3,000 infants a day are being strapped down, tortured, and mutilated by penis reduction surgery, also known as circumcision, and and then to go, oh yeah, I need to do this soft message to reach the people.
Yeah.
It's difficult. It's difficult, and it's getting. I'm getting better. I'm getting better, but that soft message, yeah. So that and tying into that soft message. So what message what messages do you think work? And I know you mentioned your whole baby and doctors opposing circumcision. Do you have any particular messages from them that come to you right now?
Well, women are federally protected, or their genitals are federally protected. So I like to tell mothers that they have a foreskin too, the clitoral hood, and ask them if they would want their parents to cut that off when they were a baby. Um, and let them know that, if the dad is cut, that he's not an authority. He should not be consulted on whether the baby should be cut because the dad has no experience with foreskin. He never had it himself, so he doesn't understand the importance. But the mother does. She has a clitoral hood. So just like women want to be whole and protected and intact, they should give that right to their son as well.
I've said that same thing. I've mentioned that same thing before when women say that they deferred to the father for that decision when the father doesn't have a foreskin and
Right.
it and never, even though he was born with one, it was removed hours after his birth and he never knew the functions and uses or and the pleasure and how it was how the mechanics how it affects the mechanics of sex. Although she does have a foreskin, because it's her clitoral hood, and I've said this that every mammal on Earth has a foreskin, male and female. And why? How do you suppose that the human male is the only animal on Earth that is in need of immediate genital modification?
Yeah. Good question.
Yeah, good question on that one. I've yet to get a good answer for that one. Um,
Well, along those lines, maybe you would say, do you circumcise dogs? Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, funny you say that because it's like, have you ever heard of a dog having problems with his foreskin?
Yeah. Right.
I've never heard of one,
Right.
and all the dogs have one, males
Yeah.
and females.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. Again, but that's like using logic almost, and we need to tap into the emotion because it's not a logical issue. If it was logical, then everybody would go, "Oh yeah, we don't cut healthy genitals of infants."
Oh, right. Right.
Right. So yeah. So yeah. Where do you see so let's talk about the movement of intactivism itself, because I mean, it's like herding cats. You you got everybody, everybody's coming at it from different angles. The Intaction with is as doing legislation. We have Intact Global, which the Intact Global conference is coming up in the middle of April. That they're actually doing a lawsuit in the state of Oregon right now and hoping to open and possibly Washington State next. Um, you have the Bloodstained Men, who is doing the educational street outreach using theatrical influences to bring attention and awareness to the harms happening to children today. Um, do you think there's a way for us to support each other, or do you think that that's already happening?
Good question. Yeah, I agree with you. It kind of feels like the Wild Wild West, which is why I love that the bloodstained men wear cowboy hats. All we need is a lasso.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like everybody's approach is valid. Um, I don't really criticize people's approaches on this issue. I let them say whatever they want and feel, and I support everybody because we need every angle we can get. Um, but I think with the rise in social media, that's really made a big change on getting some of this information out. Um, TikTok, YouTube, but the people in my generation and younger, they are being exposed to some of this information about circumcision harm and leaving their sons intact. Um, like my sister had a baby almost going on a year ago, and when she found out she was pregnant, she had already been exposed to some of this information, and you know, she joked around about it with people that what kind of circumcision cut would they give to their son, because there's probably all different types of cuts, and she mentioned as a woman she has foreskin and she wouldn't want that cut. So I think social media has helped get out that message, and also there's a big crunchy mom movement where people are trying to be more natural, alternative, and steer clear of the medical system. Perhaps that's in response to the COVID pandemic and how things went with that. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of different things that are kind of overlapping to help, and cutting rates are down to 50%. So once the kids now grow up and have their own babies, they're not going to cut their kids, so that rate's going to fall to 25%. So I think within a single generation, we're going to see this almost eradicated.
That would
That's
be good.
optimistic, I know. It might sound too optimistic, but between legislation and the intact babies keeping their babies intact, we're going to see this plummet.
Mhm. Well, and it's again, talking about the selling the foreskin. It's the money train. So circumcision started in the United States of America as a punishment for masturbation, and now it continues as a $6 billion a year industry. And if attacking that money train is what's going to stop it. But it's also the information too. And it's like, and I'm glad you said the people of your generation, they're starting to realize, because the information is out there. They can't hide they can't hide circumcision behind closed doors like they did, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's okay when the baby's screaming behind closed doors and we can't hear it, and we'll never see it because it's behind their pants, and we don't talk about sex in America, so we'll never know about it. But now that the information is available, circumcision videos are available. I actually watched one this morning, and I don't think that any parent could watch a circumcision video and continue to mutilate their child, circumcise their child.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I had an idea actually to make a big box horror movie and use real footage of circumcisions. But maybe that's probably too crazy. But yeah, it's the worst type of horror imaginable.
Yeah. I actually refer to it as the most extreme form of sexual violence imaginable.
Oh yeah.
So,
I mean it. Yeah, it's not surprising that it's a enduring replacement for child sacrifice, because that's exactly what it is. It's sacrificing somebody else's body parts. There's an analogy of like if everybody was jumping off a cliff, would you jump off the cliff? Well, I'll take that one step further. If everybody was pushing their child off the cliff, would you push your child off the cliff? Right?
so funny you mentioned that. I just heard that yesterday as an analogy for circumcision. That, I mean, I think all of us growing up, your parents were like, well, just because they're doing it doesn't mean you should do it too. But yet they mutilated the genitals of the child because everybody else was doing it. Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And that's a common excuse they give is that, well, that's just the norm. That's what everybody does.
Hmm.
So obviously they didn't think too much about it.
Yeah. Well, and you're so limiting the the child, the babies, and the man he's to become. You're limiting his sexual partners, because even though it's normalized in the United States, it's not normalized anywhere else in the rest of the world almost. And certainly the United States stands alone as the only country in the world that circumcises children for non-religious reasons.
Yeah.
Everywhere else in the world circumcises because of religious reasons, except the
Right.
United States.
Well, that's a great data point to share with expecting parents. They may not be aware of that,
Okay.
and the fact that no medical organization on earth recommends infant circumcision.
Including the ones in the United States, including the medical organizations of the United States. No medical
Yes,
organization in the world recommends infant circumcision.
right.
Um, so looking ahead of circumcision in the future, and you talked about that, you think this may we make good get down to 25% circumcision rate in the United States of America in a generation. So 25% in 25 years.
Yep.
I like that. Yeah. If
Yeah.
we can, yeah, that's basically a generation. So I guess when you look 25 years ahead, what do you hope this movement has achieved?
Hmm. Well, I hope it achieves uh, something similar to all the other civil rights movements, whether it was abolishing slavery and criminalizing slavery, or um, Black American civil rights having equal opportunity, um, or back when women became allowed to vote, so women's liberation. So all these other civil rights movements produced new norms, new legislation, and a whole new reality to grant equal protection.
And you're 100% right. This is a civil rights issue. This
Yeah,
is a civil rights issue just as much as slavery or women's voting. We're talking about the rights of the children to keep the body that they were born with. Um,
yeah. And what's interesting about that is I don't think that I think legislation is sometimes like the last step of that. Preceding that is changing the social norms. And that's exactly what we're doing in intactivism.
hmm. So this can be exhausting. When you're standing in a room with 1,000 people and you're the only one that's there trying to protect the natural bodies of a newborn infant, and everybody else so seems to be everybody else is cutting into the natural healthy tissue of an infant. What keeps you going when it gets exhausting? What keeps you going in activism when it gets exhausting?
Hmm. Well, I feel like I'm sticking up for myself. At one point, I was that victim. I was strapped to a crucifix and violently mutilated. And although I consider myself a survivor and working to overcome this, I feel like I owe it to myself to stick up for all the future victims and all the past victims. And that gives me a great sense of purpose.
Mhm. So you use the analogy you're strapped to a crucifix, but in reality, you're strapped to a circumstrant board, which is
Yeah.
specifically designed to immobilize an infant for genital mutilation. Um,
Yep. Yeah.
how do we live? How do we live in a time when there's a product that's specifically designed to immobilize an infant for genital mutilation?
It's shocking. Um, yeah, they code it as a patient safety device.
Can you name any other quote unquote medical procedure in the modern world that requires restraints?
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Definitely not. Maybe a willing participant in a MRI machine might be restrained for the video, but
Mm,
that's again that's a willing participant, and they're not being um, raped and tortured and mutilated.
hmm
Talking to the people that are listening right now, What's the one, what's one action every listener can take this month? One thing this month.
Hmm. Well, starting conversations about it can be hard, but there are opportunities, um, whether it's expecting parents or um, even mentioning it in a fun, playful way about the role of the foreskin, or maybe
The
joking
roll.
around that.
The rolling action. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, go.
exactly.
Sorry.
Or saying stuff like, don't you think it's weird that half of American men are on erectile dysfunction drugs, and there's an erectile dysfunction drug on the commercial for every commercial,
Mm.
something like that. Um, or the fact that people have to use lubes while they're having sex. Both of those things are consequences of circumcision.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like the idea that 500 years ago that you had to go down to the local CVS to get lube for to have sex is pretty ridiculous. So I think the one thing, if the listener today, if one thing they could do is just visit one website. Just visit one website, whether and for us, and it's like I agree with you, and it's like, your whole baby, doctors opposing circumcision, and then you can go to Bloodstained Men. And if you go to Bloodstained Men and you go to the drop down menu, it says learn more. There are two videos, actual videos of circumcision with a Gomco clamp and with a Mogan clamp. And it took me years before I could sit through one of those videos. It's
Yeah,
just so horrific. And the sound of that baby crying is unimaginable.
yeah. The screams are haunting. It's like a feral animal worse than you can imagine.
And
But
that one
yeah,
I saw this morning, and I was like, I was trying to figure out why the screams were so short. But then I realized, and it's like this infant, their lungs have only been breathing for a few hours,
yeah,
and now they're being subjected to the most extreme form of sexual violence imaginable. And it's no wonder they pass out. I mean, they don't have they run out of oxygen.
yeah. I've wondered that too, because that transition to breathing, it can take a while for some babies. So yeah, for them to have to scream, yeah, that's definitely damaging their bodies. They're not even ready to make noise like that.
Right, right, yeah. And I even heard this week that a woman took her child in to get their hearing tested. And one of the questions on the hearing test was the child circumcised? And she was like, the mom was like, what? Why? Why would you ask that question? And the doctor was like, well, some of the infants, their eardrums burst during circumcision.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, wow, yeah. Their lungs have been known to rupture
Hmm.
or even heart attacks.
Yes.
They
Yes.
might they vomit. They sometimes they vomit and choke on their own vomit.
Yeah. Well, and circumcision will never be on the death certificate. We as intactivists know that. It'll be some other, it'll be insinuation, which is bleeding to death. And okay, well, why was the baby bleeding to death? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Why did the baby choke on its own vomit? Why did the baby's lung burst? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Exactly.
so you recently, for the first time ever, was this your, okay, let me ask you this. Was this your first time you've ever protested anything on the streets?
I guess technically second. So
Okay.
I guess 5 years ago,
Mhm.
during the COVID shutdown, I went down to a small organized protest at the state capitol to protest the shutting down of jobs because
Ah,
small businesses were being shut down by
yeah.
government order, and mom and pop businesses, which make up the vast majority of rural America, most of those were, going bankrupt, frankly.
Yeah.
And
Which,
even though I worked for a corporation, I was outraged. So I went down there and protested to open up the state and let the people work.
so what was the most common reactions that you get from men while out protesting for infant circumcision?
Um, the most common would be ignoring us. They would kind of look and then look away and maybe pretend they didn't see it. But I
Mhm.
think it plants a seed.
Yeah, you cannot unsee the uniform. Yes,
Yeah,
certainly.
yeah. So
Um,
I think it plants a seed, and it might make them more curious to learn more in the future.
okay. Um, what was your best exchange with someone while you were protesting?
So when we were at San Francisco State University, I
Hmm.
was standing with Julius, the fellow who joined us, who lived locally in California, and we were approached by a Jewish woman who she she basically asked us a few questions of why we were doing this and do we have any evidence that circumcision is harmful. And she revealed that her brother is a mohel who cuts
Oh,
babies. He performs the ritual circumcisions. So once I shared some of the research and information about how circumcision harms, from the boys being killed, 120 boys per year being killed, or the brain damage from the pain, the emotional problems, the psychological problems, and the sexual harm, even into adulthood. She seemed to be understanding it and getting it, and was very kind and receptive. And she even mentioned that she has some friends in her. I think she was part of a doula or midwife support group, and they had some women who were victims of FGM.
mm,
And so she said she was aware that genital cutting harmed women, but she claimed she wasn't aware on how it harmed men. But she was receptive, and she asked for a resource. So I gave her Ronald Goldman's Hidden Wound book and his website, Circumcision Resource Center.
mhm.
And she said she learned a lot and she appreciated us for being there.
What and that we do have a lot of Jewish people that are part of the intactivist movement, and there's Jews against circumcision. There's the Bruhim, and there's also what was the other
Brit
one?
Shalom.
Brit Shalom. Yeah, so Brit Shalom is the actual ceremony welcoming the child and naming the child without the blood at sacrifice. Yeah.
Yeah,
And many Jewish people are now choosing that for their children. Um,
yeah, it's great.
yeah. So what happens at most protests the public never sees?
Um, well, sometimes people will come by and let out an insult in my ear or whatever while they're passing by, but I don't really
Mhm.
care.
Mhm.
Um, we didn't have a whole lot of pushback. I think that was because we were in San Francisco, which is famous for being the first city to ever try to ban circumcision.
Right.
So now at the Super Bowl, when there was people coming in from out of town, we had a little bit more pushback, but still not a whole lot.
Well, we've covered a lot. Um, what is there anything you'd like to address right now?
Um, I think we had a great talk.
Yeah.
Covered a lot of important stuff.
Well, let's see, what was your first moment that you realized circumcision was a human rights issue?
That's interesting. Well, I would say, when I became aware of the FGM bill, which I think was 5 or 10 years ago, I still didn't understand the circumcision harm, but I knew it was a problem that only half of the race was protected, women. So I knew that it was not equal protection.
Mm, yeah, and for the viewers that aren't aware, so the federal female genital mutilation law was passed in 1996. That law was struck down by a court in 2018 as being unconstitutional. They reintroduced the bill with a few changes in the wording, but it still doesn't protect men or intersex children. So it could easily be struck down again as being unconstitutional by the 14th Amendment. And I think that until all children are protected, none of the children are protected because as we speak, there is a Somali population in Minnesota that are genitally mutilating girls. It's happening. We know about it. Um, no one is pressing charges about it. As a matter of fact, that doctor that was charged in 2018 is for mutilating a girl is still practicing today as we speak. Um, I can certainly send the information if that's something people are interested in. But until all are protected, none is protected because we're at what point is a penis a millimeter too short and a clitoris a millimeter too long that one is protected and one is not. So
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
it's
and I was
go ahead.
I was I was surprised to learn about the intersex genital cutting.
Mhm.
I had no idea that doctors were cutting up the genitals to try to force a specific gender on babies born with both parts.
Mhm.
I don't know how rare that is, but that is still a significant part of the problem.
And I don't think we don't know how rare that is because it's not recorded. It's just done. Like circumcision is just done, and circumcision is the only unregulated surgery in the United States of America.
Mm,
And again, I think it's unregulated and it's not talked about. Um, it's unfortunate. I mean, all no child should have their no child should have scars on their genitals. And the fact remains that there's 100 million people in the United States of America with scars on their genitals. They just all happen to be men, with a very small, again, with a very small percentage of the intersex um, children that have been cut. But no one should have scars on their genitals.
yeah, yeah,
Well, I think that we've covered an amazing amount. I didn't think we'd get this far, actually. I think we've covered about every question I had ready to
awesome.
go. And it's like, and with everybody busy schedule in today's world, if they made it this far into the conversation, um, they're certainly willing to learn.
Yeah,
And again, we can't say too much about your whole baby. Doctors opposing circumcision and the Bloodstained Men website. What would you like to?
yeah. Well, I'd like to make a pitch for Bloodstained Men. I had a really, really good time joining y'all out there,
Mhm.
and appreciate the invite. And I want to encourage everybody else to reach out to Matt Kennison. His contact information is on Bloodstained Men website, and he can set up your travel arrangements, your lodging, and while you're out there, you can get your food and meals comped. So, um, Bloodstained Men has some donors that cover all this. So we're trying to invite others to join us, and I'm definitely going to try to make this a once or twice thing per year. I don't have a whole lot of time because of my work PTO, but I'm going to be a regular, and it's a great time to hang out with like-minded people and stand for all the victims and try to make a difference. Try to plant those seeds and spark those conversations. And I really do think it's the most powerful public art demonstration in history. I mean, that bloodstained suit, it externalizes that hidden wound that otherwise people wouldn't see or talk about.
Exactly. Yes. It's the hidden wound. It's the wound hidden by denial, and it's the wound hidden by shame, and it's the wound hidden by your pants.
Yeah.
And the bloodstained men uniform did once you can't unsee the uniform. Yeah. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thank
I thought at first like putting it on, I would kind of feel a little shy or weird about it,
sure.
but yeah, but like being shoulder to shoulder with all of y'all, I felt confident to walk down the streets, be in the buses, trains, anything.
Hmm.
It's just it's a powerful symbol, but once people see it and they understand what it means, they can't deny it.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, Jeff, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dwayne. Good to see you.
Okay, you as well.